Scary story about monsters in the mountains. The jagged peaks of the Appalachian Mountains clawed at the bruised, storm-ridden sky. For Sarah and Mark, and their two young children, Lily and Tom, it was supposed to be a scenic family getaway, a chance to reconnect with nature and escape the suffocating grip of city life. They had rented a remote cabin nestled deep within the heart of the mountain range, far from the prying eyes of civilization. Sarah, a meticulous planner, had envisioned cozy nights by the fire, invigorating hikes through ancient forests, and the joyous laughter of her children echoing through the mountain air. Mark, always the more adventurous one, had embraced the isolation, eager to challenge himself against the rugged terrain. Lily, at 10, was excited by the prospect of exploring the wilderness, while 6-year-old Tom clung to his parents, apprehensive about leaving the familiar comforts of home. They had driven for hours, the winding mountain roads testing Mark's driving skills and Sarah's patience. The further they ventured into the wilderness, the more the cell service faded, until they were completely cut off from the outside world. The cabin, when they finally reached it, was even more isolated than they had anticipated. It was a rustic structure, built of rough-hewn logs, its windows dark and uninviting. The surrounding forest pressed in on all sides, its ancient trees casting long, ominous shadows. Despite the unsettling atmosphere, they tried to make the best of it. They unpacked their belongings, lit a fire in the hearth, and prepared a simple meal. Tom, still clinging to his parents, refused to venture outside. As darkness descended, the wind began to howl through the trees, rattling the cabin windows and sending shivers down their spines. The sounds of the forest grew louder, more menacing. Unseen creatures rustled in the undergrowth, their cries echoing through the night. Sarah, trying to reassure her children, told them stories of friendly forest animals and magical mountain spirits. But even she couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The next morning, Mark, eager to explore the surrounding wilderness, convinced Sarah to join him on a hike. They left Lily in charge of Tom, promising to be back before dark. They set off down a narrow trail, the towering trees looming over them like silent sentinels. The air was thick with the scent of pine and damp earth, and the silence was broken only by the rustling of leaves and the occasional call of a bird. As they hiked deeper into the mountains, the trail grew steeper and more treacherous. The sunlight faded, and the forest grew darker, more oppressive. Then, they heard it. A low, guttural growl, coming from the trees ahead. They froze, their hearts pounding in their chests. They exchanged a nervous glance, their faces pale with fear. What was that? Sarah whispered. Mark shook his head. I don't know, he said. But I don't like it. They continued down the trail, their senses on high alert. The growl came again, closer this time. Then, they saw it. A shape moving in the trees, large and indistinct. It seemed to glide through the forest, its movements unnaturally fluid and silent. What is that? Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. Mark raised his hand, signaling her to be quiet. He strained his eyes, trying to get a better look at the creature. As it moved closer, they could make out more details. It was tall and gaunt, with long, spindly limbs and an elongated head. Its skin was a sickly gray, and its eyes glowed with an eerie, phosphorescent light. It was unlike anything they had ever seen. Fear, raw and primal, seized them. They knew that they were in danger. We have to go back, Sarah said, her voice barely a whisper. Mark nodded, his face grim. They turned and ran, scrambling back up the trail, desperate to escape the creature that was pursuing them. They ran until their lungs burned and their legs felt like lead. They glanced back and saw that the creature was gaining on them. It was moving faster than they thought possible, its long limbs propelling it forward with unnatural speed. It's getting closer, Sarah cried, her voice filled with panic. Mark grabbed her hand and pulled her forward, his face set with grim determination. They had to reach the cabin. They had to protect their children. As they ran, they stumbled across a clearing, and in the center of the clearing, they saw something that made their blood run cold. A circle of stones, each topped with a bleached skull. A macabre altar, bathed in the pale sunlight filtering through the trees. They knew that they had stumbled upon something ancient and evil, something that had been lurking in these mountains for centuries. The creature emerged from the trees, its glowing eyes fixed on them. It let out a deafening shriek, a sound that seemed to tear at the fabric of reality. Sarah and Mark knew that they were trapped. There was no escape. Run, Mark yelled, pushing Sarah towards the trees. Get back to the cabin. I'll hold it off. Sarah hesitated, her heart filled with fear. She couldn't leave him. Go, Mark yelled again, his voice desperate. Save the children. Sarah knew that he was right. She had to protect her children. She turned and ran, pushing her way through the trees, her heart breaking with every step. She could hear Mark behind her, fighting the creature. The sounds of struggle, the guttural growls, the sickening thud of flesh on flesh. She didn't look back. She couldn't. She ran until she reached the cabin, her body trembling with exhaustion and terror. She burst through the door, her eyes scanning the room. Lily and Tom were huddled together by the fire, their faces pale with fear. "Mommy," Lily cried, running to her and hugging her tight. "Where's Daddy?" Tom asked, his voice trembling. Sarah couldn't answer. She couldn't tell them what had happened. "We have to go," she said, her voice strained. "We have to leave now." She grabbed their backpacks and started to pack their belongings. They had to get out of this cabin, out of these mountains, before it was too late. As they were packing, they heard it. A scratching sound, coming from the roof. They froze, their hearts pounding in their chests. They knew what it was. The creature, it was on the roof, crawling towards the cabin. "It's here," Lily whispered, her voice filled with terror. Sarah grabbed a fireplace poker, her hand trembling. She had to protect her children. The scratching sound grew louder, closer. Then, the roof began to crack. With a deafening crash, the creature burst through the roof, landing in the center of the room. It was even more terrifying up close. Its skin was a sickly gray, its eyes glowing with an eerie light. Its mouth was filled with rows upon rows of razor-sharp teeth. It let out a deafening shriek and lunged at them. Sarah raised the fireplace poker and swung it with all her might, striking the creature in the head. The creature staggered back, momentarily stunned. "Run!" Sarah yelled. "Get out of here!" Lily grabbed Tom's hand and ran towards the door. Sarah followed close behind, her fireplace poker raised high. They burst out of the cabin and ran into the forest, their hearts pounding in their chests. They knew that the creature would be coming after them. They had to find a place to hide. They ran until they reached a small cave, hidden beneath a pile of rocks. It was their only chance. They squeezed into the cave, their bodies trembling. They waited, listening to the creature searching for them. They could hear it moving around outside the cave, its footsteps getting closer and closer. They held their breath, praying that it wouldn't find them. Then, the footsteps stopped. They heard a low, guttural growl right outside the cave entrance. They knew that it was there. It had found them. The cave was small, there was nowhere to run. Their destiny was now in the hands of the monster that hunted them. But the monster had been toying with them. The moment it could have acted on their terror, it simply held back, allowing its prey to saturate in the fear, creating a taste of inevitability. A clawed hand, long and skeletal, reached into the opening, groping in the darkness. It swept the outside with an uncomfortable pace, as if the creature was mocking its prey. Lily and Tom huddled together, their eyes wide with terror. Sarah, although deeply frightened, stepped in front, ready to protect her children even at the cost of her own life. The moment was tense, time slowed and the monster pulled the hand back. There was a deep sigh that followed. It was the creature's way of enjoying a deep, relaxing breath of the fear it had cultivated. The silence was broken with the scraping noise of the creature adjusting, preparing itself to reach into the cave. But then, something unexpected happened. "Mommy," Lily whispered. "What is that?" The monster paused, its attention caught. It was the voice of a child, something it hadn't factored in its desire to inflict as much terror as possible. It knew children screamed loud, and often with extreme intensity. This would bring others and ruin the hunt. Sarah frowned. "Lily, what do you see?" "A light, Mommy," she said. "There's a light inside of it." Sarah squinted. She could see that the monster was casting a glow inside the cave now, the light that Lily spoke about. It pulsed faintly, a soft blue hue that was almost soothing. The hand crept forward again, moving much slower than it previously had. Sarah steeled herself, preparing to fight, but then she noticed something else. The hand wasn't reaching for them. It was reaching towards the back of the cave, towards a small crevice hidden in the shadows. The creature's clawed fingers slipped into the crevice, and then, with a gentle tug, it pulled something out. It was a small, stone tablet, covered in strange symbols. The same symbols that Sarah had seen on the altar in the clearing. The creature held the tablet in its hand, its glowing eyes fixed on the symbols. It seemed to be studying them. Then, it looked at Sarah, its expression almost curious. It tilted its head, as if trying to understand something. It extended the tablet to Sarah, as if it wanted her to take it. Sarah hesitated. She didn't know what to do. Was this a trick? Was the creature trying to lure her into a trap? But something in its eyes told her that it wasn't. It was something more complex than malice, a flicker of recognition. Slowly, cautiously, she reached out and took the tablet. The moment her fingers touched it, a jolt of energy surged through her body. She gasped, her vision blurring. Then, she saw it. A vision of the past, of a time long ago when the mountains were inhabited by a different kind of creature. A peaceful, intelligent race that had lived in harmony with nature. But then, something had changed. A darkness had descended upon the mountains, corrupting the creatures, turning them into the monsters they had become. The symbols on the tablet were a key, a way to unlock the secrets of the past, to understand what had happened, and perhaps, to reverse the corruption. The vision faded, and Sarah found herself back in the cave, the tablet clutched tightly in her hand. She looked at the creature, her heart filled with a mixture of fear and understanding. "You want me to help you," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "You want me to understand what happened?" The creature nodded, its eyes glowing with a faint hope. Sarah knew what she had to do. She had to stay in the mountains, to decipher the symbols on the tablet, to find a way to heal the corruption that had plagued these creatures for centuries. She looked at Lily and Tom, their faces filled with confusion and fear. She knew that it would be dangerous, that they would be risking their lives. But she also knew that it was the right thing to do. They couldn't just run away. They had to help these creatures, to restore peace to the mountains. "We're staying," she said, her voice firm. "We're going to help them." Lily and Tom looked at her, their eyes filled with a mixture of fear and awe. They didn't understand what was happening, but they trusted their mother. Sarah smiled, her heart filled with a newfound hope. They were a family, and they would face this challenge together. She knew that the journey ahead would be long and arduous, filled with danger and uncertainty. But she also knew that they were not alone. They had the support of each other, and the guidance of the ancient creatures who had once called these mountains home. The creature extended a hand, not the clawed and skeletal hand she had been fearing, but a gentle, welcoming gesture with open palms. Sarah held out her hand for Lily and motioned for Tom to grab on too. She walked with confidence. It had taken her a long time, but in that moment she realized where she was supposed to be. Not safe, not comfortable, but where she was needed, and that was all the safety she would ever need. The family stepped past the creature into the open night, with it leading the way towards whatever future awaited them in those perilous mountains. Years passed. The legend of Sarah, Mark, whose fate was never revealed but whose memory lived on as inspiration, Lily, and Tom became woven into the folklore of the Appalachian Mountains. The family, guided by the creature, whom they eventually named Elder, understanding it was a title, not a name, delved deeper into the mountain's mysteries. Sarah, using her scientific mind and her burgeoning understanding of the tablet symbols, began to unravel the history of the ancient civilization. She discovered they were not merely creatures of the mountains, but beings intertwined with the very essence of the land. They were caretakers, protectors, drawing their power from the mountain's heart. The corruption, she learned, stemmed from an ancient meteorite that had crashed into the mountains centuries ago, poisoning the earth and twisting the minds of the creatures. The altar in the clearing wasn't a place of worship, but a containment site, built to trap the meteorite's influence. Lily, now a young woman, inherited her mother's intelligence and her father's adventurous spirit. She became a skilled climber and explorer, venturing into the deepest, most treacherous parts of the mountains, searching for clues and resources. She forged a unique bond with Elder, understanding its thoughts and emotions with an almost telepathic connection. Tom, no longer a frightened child, became a skilled healer, learning from Elder the secrets of the mountain's plants and herbs. He developed a deep empathy for the corrupted creatures, dedicating his life to finding a cure for their affliction. Together, they became a force for good in the mountains, a beacon of hope for the lost and the afflicted. They rebuilt the ancient structures, purifying the land, and slowly, painstakingly, reversing the effects of the meteorite's poison. The corrupted creatures, drawn to their compassion, began to seek him out. Tom would treat their ailments, easing their pain and offering them solace. Sarah would teach them about their past, reminding them of their former selves, rekindling the spark of intelligence and empathy that had been buried beneath the corruption. Lily, with Elder by her side, would lead them to the purified areas of the mountains, where they could begin to heal and rediscover their true nature. The task was long and arduous, but they never gave up. They were driven by a deep sense of purpose, a belief that even the most corrupted soul could be redeemed. Years turned into decades. Sarah's hair turned silver, Lily and Tom became adults, and the mountains slowly began to heal. The corrupted creatures grew fewer and fewer, replaced by their former selves, their eyes no longer glowing with malice, but with the gentle light of understanding. One day, Sarah stood on the summit of the highest peak, overlooking the mountains that had become her home. Lily and Tom stood beside her, their faces etched with the wisdom and resilience that only a life lived in service to others could provide. Elder stood silently behind them, its presence a constant reminder of the challenges they had overcome and the work that still remained. The sun shone brightly, casting a golden glow over the landscape. The mountains were alive with the sounds of nature, the rustling of leaves, the calls of birds, the gentle murmur of streams. It was a symphony of peace, a testament to the power of compassion, courage, and unwavering dedication. Sarah smiled, her heart filled with gratitude. They had found their purpose in this wild, unforgiving place. They had faced the darkness and emerged victorious. They had become the protectors of the mountains, the guardians of its secrets, and the keepers of its ancient wisdom. And as she gazed out over the vast expanse of wilderness, she knew that they would continue to protect these mountains, to heal its creatures, and to preserve its beauty, for as long as they lived. For they were no longer just a family. They were a part of the mountains, inextricably linked to its fate, bound together by a shared purpose, a love for the land, and an unwavering belief in the power of hope. The monsters of the mountains had been banished, replaced by the echoes of something far more important: connection, respect, and the inherent responsibility to protect all living things. The journey had just begun,